when I look back at my life, especially over the last 8 years, I look at different inflection points in my life. And one of them is applying for the apprenticeship program. I just said, let me apply. And I took that leap of faith. And I find that that inflection point triggered so much to happen. And I think also, no matter how meticulously you plan in life about dreams and aspirations, it really comes down to one or two inflection points that alter the course of your life, and by taking those leaps of faith.
And we want to talk about your journey. We want to talk about that. Go as far back as you possibly can, and take us. We got as much time as we need. Take us all the way through, from the very beginning to where you are right now, and then we're going to talk about the future. Right? Okay. So, right ahead.
Okay, so I'm Deenauth Mohabeer. I'm a problem solver and a cancer survivor. And I'm not too good at the first one, but I try my best. I've been in tech for about 9 years now. I finished sixth form, and I had two pathways, really. Whether I go full-time into university or I get into the workforce. And I chose the workforce option. I wanted to be more close in terms of what industry what does the industry have to offer in terms of tech in Guyana, and that was in 2016. At that time, I knew pretty much nothing, just a little bit here and there. I'd heard about V75 a little bit, and a friend recommended the first company I joined, and I started as a very simple programmer. And then I said, after talking to the person in charge there for a bit, he sort of pushed me on to, despite you're doing industry-specific work, which is building on experience and learning the current landscape in Guyana in 2016, he also said, maybe you should definitely look at getting your degree done, just for the sake of having it on a piece of paper. And so I started my studies remotely or distance learning via the University of London. I did a 4-year program in computing. And in those 4 years, I did most of my studying at nights, and focused more on trying to understand the industry, what we have going on here. And I think that understanding, or the need to understand what was going on, is so that I could probably try to fix some of the things that I wanted to be fixed. And it was, simple things like, why is it that I can't go online and submit a form and swipe my card and be able to get a document emailed back to me? Why do I need to stand in a line? Why do I need to do certain archaic things? And software allows your technology or digitization, whatever you want to frame it, allows that. And so before I can get to that fixing point, I needed to understand. And working the first year or two at that company, I went to many Guyanese companies, and I saw how far back we are. It's easy to say that when you're when you're out looking in, but when you're in that, maze, when you're in that maze, you're kind of shocked how far back we are. And I visited some of the biggest companies in the country, working to implement software systems, and it was grueling. From just the implementation to the change management to the actual software engineering, very challenging. And I think that sort of set the next couple of years that I've had. It really sort of set the foundation in terms of, this is the baseline. How do we get from where we want to go from where we are?
So let me ask you, I want to dive in. There's always that intervention point. So we're going to start with the first intervention point with regards to your intersection with tech. What was that like?
I think when I try to remember, why did I pick technology? Why didn't I do, medicine or something like that? I just remembered playing video games. And I think that started, a lot of folks have that experience. I remember playing a lot of video games. I liked understanding how that worked. I had a PlayStation Portable. We would bring it at school in third form, second form, third form. We would play all day. I didn't do pretty good at school in those days. And I just got interested. And then my IT teacher in third form, ironically, was extremely difficult to work with. She was very difficult. Everybody hated her. I hated her. we all failed our classes.
I was going to ask which high school, but I'm not going to ask anymore.
Let's go. And I remember I was like, okay, this is one subject no one is good at. I want to be good at it. I like playing games. My parents had bought a computer for my sister, an old Dell desktop computer. I was like, I'm really interested in that, but I'm really bad at the subject. So I remember going to Austin's bookstore with about $15,000, which was a lot of money for a third former back in the day. I remember saving up a few bits, and I purchased all of the textbooks from third form to fifth form, and I started to read them just so I can pass her class because everybody was failing. And I remember and what she would do is that as she was teaching, she would pick out students to ask questions, and everybody wouldn't know. And then one time she picked on me because she was like, oh, this guy doesn't know. And I already read the chapter before, and then I just answered everything clearly. And I think I was like, okay, let me just try to, that was a challenge, ironically. And then I was like, some of this stuff is interesting. I think binary, understand, you have to do like binary addition of binary numbers. I was like, that's like a whole different language, right? It's a whole different language that not a lot of people know. So I got into it more in fourth form. Luckily, when I reached the fourth and fifth form, there was a new IT teacher, and she was more the nurturing type. So she, Miss Majid was very nurturing, and to the point where it wasn't about trying to sort of know more than her, but to learn from her. And in fourth and fifth form, you had to continue the IT trend, and me and a few of my friends became the IT guys. So we would try to fix computers when something goes wrong, or we would be playing games, or we would, whenever, we became known for the folks, if you ask a question about IT, we would have the answer. And fifth form was my first programming experience. Actually, I did forget, in fourth form, I did the website. My first website was for my high school. So we didn't have a website, and I remember doing it on WordPress. Very simple. I just did a template and just put in the information, and everybody's mind blown. And I was like, I didn't really work that hard. I didn't feel like it was hard work because WordPress is CMS based. You just plug in the content and use a theme. And everybody was like, this is magic. I'm like, maybe it is, but I didn't do that this time. I didn't tell them that though. I made sure that I was like, this is so tough. Yeah. And then fifth form, I got into actual programming, and that was hard. I hated programming. We did Pascal. I remember I didn't have a good time at it. My friend Sunny actually had to tutor me a little bit in programming because I felt like I just loved everything software related and IT related, but programming required you to think a certain way or procedural way. And Sunny was built like that. So it was just to learn from him. So yeah, that's where it all started. And then I went to sixth form, and we sort of kept building on top of those early foundations. And then we went into the actual industry work post 2016.
So you went out of high school into industry.
Yeah, pretty much after sixth form went
straight. So tell us about that.
Well, I knew that I was going into unfamiliar territory, and I knew it immediately, and I had to go in with the mindset that I need to learn more than trying to say, oh, well, I know Pascal and C, I could do stuff. No, I went in with the mindset that I just want to learn. I just want to learn. It didn't matter if I failed. It didn't matter. I'll try again if I fail. Simple enough. I didn't feel like, I was trying to prove a point. I was trying to see if I can function in a professional setting. Because when you're in school, the stakes aren't high. The stakes are the grades at the end of the year. It's that simple. In a professional setting and an industry setting, you have so many facets that you need to meet, right? And so I started that process, and I must say, my team lead at the time when I first joined, he really was someone who, whenever he saw something interesting, he would pull us over, me and Sunny, and just say, "Oh, look at this interesting thing." And it was primarily in the Oracle space, and we were using Oracle Apex. And I was like, "Yeah, this is really good," and we got really good at it. I remember I got so good, like in 2017. 2017 to 2018, I would get so good at the Oracle and Apex side of things. Like someone could come up, and I would be deployed to clients. I wouldn't be on site. I wouldn't be at the office. I'd be at clients. So clients would come to me and have conversations with me, and I would be typing away. And I would be writing stuff, and they would be talking to me, and I'm done. I'm finished with that. I'm finished with them. And that's when I realized, like, I've almost mastered this thing. I'm really good at this thing. I'm really good at the designing and the architecture and the actual design, the development. And in Apex and Oracle, I was like, I really need to, I kind of felt like I had nowhere else to go. And I was like, I need a new challenge.
Gotcha. So how did you find this company that got you into Apex?
Yeah, it's just my friend. Yeah, he just did an internship 1 year. And he's like, oh, and he was still in school. He's 1 year younger. And he said, oh, I know two guys that are graduating. Because in QC, we were also known as the IT people as well. So he's like, oh, I know two guys that are really good. And he recommended us and had an interview. And it's pretty easy.
I want to have a sidebar here because, you came from high school and then you were shaped in industry because of this tech company that was there.
Yep.
And that's where you found Oracle Apex. And that's when you discovered how good you were at Apex. And I think that's a very significant thing that we it's hard to take for granted, how critical the tech industry is in continuing to hone skills, the raw talent, and turn into raw talent into directed talent. And how long did you spend with this company?
Oh, probably about 2.5 to 3 years, Mac. I don't think it reached 3 years, probably in between those points.
Yeah. Right. And tell us about some of the notable things that you learned, apart from Apex, of course, while working at this.
I was an introvert coming out of high school and sixth form. If you ask people from sixth form who haven't spoken to me, they would say, oh, that guy is a very quiet guy. But if you ask folks that just know me from like post sixth form, they would say, oh, he's very outgoing. And I was actually thrown into the deep end of things. I remember the team lead at the first company, he would say, go to this client and do a demo. And when you're approaching clients, you need to have a certain level of, what do you call it? Like intelligence, like more intelligent driven conversation. You can't be technical. You will lose them. Especially for me, where I came from, I was very, very technical. I would try to explain things technically, but no, I used to watch him do demos, and he would try to break it down in terms of how does it add value? How does this piece of software add value to your team? This is what it can do for you. This is what it can do for you. Sometimes we would make promises that don't actually materialize. That's okay. But, just trying to communicate, and that communication process is something that I take away from those 3 years. How do I take something technical, like super technical, and be the bridge between the end user? Whether that end user is a client or someone out in the public, how do I distill that information and translate it back into so that they can understand it? And then the other way as well.
So let me ask you, I mean, there's a perspective on this because it sounds as though these skills were imparted. But the perspective is that skills are never imparted, they're just activated.
Yeah, probably.
So how much of what you carry right now in terms of your communication capability, which is stellar. I mean, you are able to expertly liaise with clients and take care of that and then translate that back to the team. How much of that do you believe you had within you to begin with, which was just activated through the environment, versus how much of it did you actually pick up?
I think there's not like a specific thing. I think my ability to see a challenge and go head on into it and be able to sort of beat it, and sort of be successful against that challenge, it's something that I never knew I had until I wrote CSEC, and then wrote CAPE as well. Like I said, I was not a very academic, like I used to do terrible in school. And then I remember going into fifth form, folks were doing all sorts of things to get their grades up. And I was like, okay, this is a challenge for me. And I think that's where it comes from, really. I think if I put my mind to anything, once I put you into my crosshairs, I will get you, like without a doubt. And that has happened a lot in the last 8 or 9 years, where if I set myself a certain target, I will do everything that is possible to get there. And I felt like, I don't know where that came from. I used to read a lot of books about Apple back in the day and Steve Jobs back in the day. And I don't know if I picked that up from him. I don't know. But that ability has never left me.
Right. So there's this natural conviction that you carry, whereby, you know, as long as you intend on something, that's what you were able to achieve.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's now sounding as though those are latent abilities that were activated, and we just needed the opportunities to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Along the way, I remember one of the first times that I believe I encountered, or at least we crossed paths, was when I visited you at the company that you were at. And this is during the time we were promoting DevX, I believe, where, you know, our V75 network was, we were inspired to create a month-long exhibition. I don't know how we come up with these things. A month-long exhibition where we would bring all the technologists together and then create showcases for them and a whole bunch of activities. That was, I think we were in the midst of planning that, and then we came across and we were talking to you actually about it, because I remember this guy in the tie and the very business attire and well-spoken guy. And then sometime afterwards, we had a Hack Solve event. And that's where, you know, I think I encountered you again. I don't know if there's any other time. But again, same thing with the tie and the business start. But those particular events eventually led towards this apprenticeship program that we ran out of Nexus, our nonprofit. And I believe that's where we got more of an opportunity to, you know, interact with one another. And because you were one of the AI competency engineers that enrolled, or potential AI competency engineers that enrolled around the time we were offering the training program. I believe it was it was the end of 2018, thereabout. And you had applied to the program. You had gotten through the admission process. So let me switch it back to you. And you tell me about your perspective with regards to those intersections, starting with a Hack Solve, right? I remember you were really pumped and passionate about that Hack Solve. What was it about a Hack Solve? And then, you know, lead us into the whole apprenticeship program.
At the first company, we were really helping Guyanese clients. 100% of our workforce was clients was Guyanese. And I always felt this sense of pride whenever we deliver a successful project. And we had tackled some pretty tough clients that were very tough in terms of what they needed and their requirements and stuff like that. And whenever I left those projects and I moved on to the next one, I felt like, okay, this is a really good purpose, a sense of purpose that, you know, you can leave this, you can contribute to the society in this meaningful way. And that's where I think, when I approached you about DevX, which is the exhibition you spoke about, I had wanted the company at the time to integrate more into the tech scene, because we were kind of on a very weird tangent where it was we were more whoever we know we would try to get business with.
So that was your initiative to push that, the involvement in DevX.
Yeah, I think we were so isolated from everything else. You know, I said, these are some like-minded folks. They're into tech, we're into tech. Let's see what we could do. And I remember reaching out to you, trying to have you come over to the office and have a chat. We had that chat, and then DevX happened. I think we had a small role to play in DevX in terms of, I think we attended or something of this. Oh, our profile was on the DevX site or something like that. And then I remember coming to your office in South Cromwell. 3rd floor, I think it was. I had to make a payment for something. So, right? And then I saw your team. They were just lined up and they looked so scared, I would say, of seeing another human being. They were just behind their computers. And I remember I came in my tie and my shirt, and I was like, these guys are like me, and I want to see, you know, I want to be in the same space. Whenever I'm in the same space with like-minded individuals, I feel like I flourish more. So DevX happened, and then the Hack Solve happened, and then I actually felt this organic nexus point really coming together when we did the hack solve, where there was a lot of people and a lot of ideas about the things that we wanted to do. And it was all centered around how do we create value, how do we create impact, how do we generate a greater purpose rather than just turning a buck here in Guyana. And that is what really pulled me in. I was like, this is where I need to be. And I remember just having a really good time with the hack solve. And I met a lot of people. You included your team, guys on the other side of other companies. So I felt really at home. And and it's because it spoke to my purpose, which was to create more impact here, to do good here with tech. I think that's what drew me in, to be honest.
Makes sense, because I felt it. And funnily enough, DevX, which led into what we did with regards to the hack solve, that hack solve was a complete social experiment. I had expected it to fail because, typical saying goes, you can't get like 5 people in a room to work together. You're going to get like 20, 25 folks. But the interesting thing about the hack solve was that every single person volunteered.
Right. Yes.
And because they all volunteered, it meant that the cause was the common thread that held them all together. And you're saying that the whole nature, that cause, is what resonated with you.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, again, you stood out there. I think when we went through the hack solve activity, there was some brainstorming. So there's both tech and non-tech folks.
Yes.
Brainstorming phase, and then eventually we had to take the system design and then implement it. So it was you and your team that really built it out. So you guys had led the implementation aspect of that, and you made it happen, and it was there. We were able to present it after 2.5 days of brainstorming.
Yeah, I completely forgot that we actually built it out. Yeah, yeah, we actually did, and no, it was good. It was a very good, like I said, this nexus point. It felt like everybody was very much on the same page in terms of what we wanted to achieve. And then we did the engineering bit, and we were like, wow, this is pretty good. And I think that was the first time we had, or maybe not the first time, but the first time in action, you guys had seen Apex and the power of it, and how we could, do rapid application development pretty quickly. Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah. And I think around that time there was a lot happening, and among which was the apprenticeship program, the first paid apprenticeship program that we ran, and arguably probably the first paid apprenticeship program in tech in the country.
Probably.
Because from our perspective, we were getting a lot of youth coming to us in that co-working space where we were working, and they were saying, I have to choose between going to work or learning. I want to learn tech. So that was at the back of my mind, trying to figure out, how do I actually solve that problem? And an opportunity presented itself with regards to our recent, or rather the burgeoning connection with Clink. We did really well with Ace and Shamar as the first trainees. And they said, send us more. So I was like, good, you're going to fund some apprenticeship programs for us, and we're going to pay these guys to learn. Which is what we did. And we sent out the call, and you were one of the applicants in the first cohort, actually. And so tell me about what crossed your mind when you saw that ad for the apprenticeship program, and why did you apply? Because that was conversational AI, leaping from Apex to conversational AI. What sort of drove you to do that?
Yeah, like I said earlier, after a year or two into the Apex and Oracle space, I felt like I felt so good at it that I was so proficient that I needed a new challenge. I needed something to point my crosshairs onto. And I saw conversational AI, and of course I was like, well, that's something completely on a different whole other world. This may be something that I can look into. And I actually, funnily enough, when I look back at my life, especially over the last 8 years, I look at different inflection points in my life. And one of them is applying for the apprenticeship program. And that's because I think the due date for the applications was the 31st or 30th of July, one of the two. And it was out for like a month. And I was completely convinced that I was not going to apply, because I was like, maybe I won't be able to have the same level of impact if I come to the apprenticeship program than I'm having at the current company. Can I be of purpose, on purpose? Can I do that? And I think the last day, 10 p.m., right, on the last day of submission, I just said, let me just apply and see what happens. I didn't speak to anyone about it, nothing. I just said, let me apply. And I took that leap of faith. And I find that that inflection point triggered so much to happen. And I think also, no matter how meticulously you plan in life about dreams and aspirations, it really comes down to one or two inflection points that alter the course of your life. And by taking those leaps of faith. And I think the first leap of faith that I can remember, maybe the second one, was the apprenticeship program, where I applied with about 2 hours to spare. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah. And, funny you mentioned that. I want to dive into that a bit more. They're usually these very, very subtle nudges. It's not like a very pronounced, very clear-cut
definitely
path that's presented to you. Like you said, like a couple hours before it closed. Before then, you had decided that you were not going to apply. A couple hours before it closed, you got this change of heart somehow. And it was subtle, wasn't it?
Very, very. I didn't know what it was. It's like this gut feeling they speak about.
Right.
And I just like, let me take this leap of faith and see what happens. And it just changed my life.
Well, let's unpack that. What happened afterwards?
Yeah, I know.
Let's talk about that, like in the journey. Yeah.
The first apprenticeship program was very challenging. It was a whole new realm for me. I never worked in the open source area. I never did any other open source language. So on the technical side, it was a challenge. It was a big challenge to try to figure out, okay, how does this stuff work? I come from Apex. I come from Oracle. I'm an Oracle boy. I'm not a whatever, Python at the time it was. And it was a very challenging apprenticeship. But when we all sat in our room, because we had a room where all the apprentices were, about 8 or 10 of us, I can't remember, we would, about all of them were, while they were familiar with some of the open source stuff, this was something new for them too. And I found that because we all share that collective, it definitely made it a bit easier. So that's that's what happened. That apprenticeship program really opened my eyes in terms of what is capable. Not just what is capable, but what is capable in Guyanese. Because when I saw, I think you and Shamar, you and Ace had done a demo with Ford, and you guys had built an AI assistant to run in the car. And I was like, this is extraordinary. This kind of stuff is unheard of. This is 2018. No one was talking about AI. And here we are in little Guyana, getting this kind of thing done and completely end-to-end engineered by our folks. And that's when I was like, okay, these guys are pretty good. They're pretty good. And it was good to work with them too. When you begin the apprenticeship program, it was, how do you get from here to there? It's pretty simple, study and practice. Study and practice. And I remember just being completely mind blown when we just did something simple. When you look at what Ace and Shamar did in particular, like, how do I get there? It's going to take us a long time. But when we did something simple, just getting the AI to just respond to a simple query was mind blowing. And I think it connected with my purpose, which is, this is capable. We are capable. Guyanese are capable people. We just need to be given the opportunity. Or in this sense, we need to take a very, very small gap that was opened up by Clink and just completely send for it. And be bold and like I said, you sort of just have these moments where you just make big decisions. And yeah, I think that's what you guys did, and it just paid off immensely.
And you were in new waters, but your intentionality came through for you once again.
Exactly.
And I could recall you did well in the apprenticeship program, and you eventually applied to V75. That was out of our nonprofit, but you eventually applied to V75 to come on board as a full-time AI competency engineer. And I remember from that point, yeah, you were working with the team. You're pretty, let's say, you're blending really well with everyone. And I think that's partly because, the entire team was well curated, I believe, in terms of how we pick our people. But what I noticed about you in terms of that progression on entering as an apprentice, within a very, very short space of time, you made it all the way to a COO position.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, I want you to unpack that. From my perspective, right? Here's what I saw. I saw this enterprising young man who never had any particular regard for his responsibilities and the boundaries of his responsibilities. So you had a job description. You fulfilled that job description, but where you had an opportunity to take initiative, you took initiative. And you had no reservations as opposed to calling up Acer or myself or what have you, some of the most senior folks on the team, and suggesting things and just saying, I think we should do this. I think we should do that, and so on. That was one of the notable things for me as a CEO that made you stand out. It's just that initiative. And the initiative, from my perspective, really told me that you gave a damn.
Yeah.
You actually, you cared about something beyond the ambit of your responsibilities. You cared about something beyond the paycheck at the end of the month. And it was that commitment and that investment that made you stand out to me, right? And of course, you're a brilliant guy, right? And you are, you carry yourself with a certain degree of what is the word? Self-discipline. And you know what you're about. And it's funny that you mentioned the whole crosshairs bit, because now it all makes sense, right? Whatever you set your sights on. So that's from my perspective. I want you to share from your perspective, right? Did it happen? Did you coast towards that occurrence, or was it something that was planned from the inception, that you set your crosshairs on?
The progression from the apprenticeship to COO definitely was not planned. I don't think it was in my crosshairs either. When I started V75 after the apprenticeship with Nexus Hub Inc., I started with the same mindset that I did when I started the first company, which is, I'm here to learn. I need to understand. That was in my crosshairs. How do I become really, really good at this conversational AI stuff? How do I do that? And that was the target. And it's more, I think it was a very good blend of me trying and me learning, as well as the teammates that I had around me. Me, Asa, and Shamar really connected well, in particular. It's almost like, even now, fast forward to now, when me and Asa peer program, he does 50% of the equation, I do the other 50%. And we don't tell each other we're doing which percent. We just know we're very good at just naturally working together. But going back there, I remember just setting myself up for, okay, how do I be very good at this conversational AI stuff? And we'll take it from there. And then as I started to work with V75 more, and we started to build out more conversational AI stuff, I realized that, okay, and this is where you mentioned, I don't really stick to that structure of the job description. Like I said, I am a problem solver. And so if I see a problem, I try to at least make my suggestion known, get it off my chest, and you can do what you want with it. And I don't care really about the authority bit. If you're accessible, and you guys were, V75, I could have come in your office or anyone's and just have an open discussion about, hey, I feel like we can do this a little differently. And apart from, it's not just being wrong and or just being able to say what you think should happen, but also to be able to take input from that, because maybe I'm not seeing all the pieces. So I started doing that more and more, because as I got more integrated into the team, I felt like, okay, this is an area where we could do a little better. This is an area we could do a little better. And I remember coming to you and Asa and just saying, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And I remember when we tried to adopt Apex into our dev tools or toolkit, I had to really, I was like, we can engineer quicker. We can engineer probably 10 times faster. Here's how you do it. I remember doing a quick mock-up, and it wasn't a sense of, oh, from your perspective or from the company's perspective, it wasn't, oh, I feel threatened by this. And I think that's a defining thing. It's about being open and being able to see value if it doesn't come from you. And I think that is where a lot of people elsewhere may have a problem with. It's not about your way or the highway. It's about if someone comes with a relatively good suggestion and there's proof behind that, it's about just taking that in and say, thank you for this. Let's work together and getting it done. And so that model that you guys have was different and unique. And I can tell you from working in other Guyanese companies, when I was there at my old job, when I would visit those clients, that was not present. It's something uniquely, it's embedded into the V75's DNA. I don't know where it came from. It had probably you, 99% sure it was from you, where you need to be responsive to new ideas and different perspectives, but still maintaining that if you keep bringing things into the collective, that it'll meet your objective. And you guys definitely allow that for me. So that was like the starting of me suggesting things. And naturally, when from your perspective, when you see someone doing that, you're like, okay, this person cares beyond the paycheck. And very much so, like I felt like I was some days I would be up working, just trying to get the job done so that X benefit can happen for the people. Simple. It nothing else. And so that's where that started. In terms of how it switched from the technical stuff to the COO stuff, that had it's kind of hard to vision it, but I think, or to plot it out on a graph. But I think when we had COVID and stuff, we were impacted like everywhere else in the world. We had to work from home. Plus, we had a crisis here at home. So that was not good for my mental health. I remember in 2020, August, I was rock bottom. And that was just because of being alone. And then also the current situation on the ground was horrible. I just could not have functioned. And I remember like just doing a quick evaluation going into 2021, like what is it that I want to do here? Where do I set myself up? How do I add value? And I felt like at the time I wanted to, and it's the same with the first company, I felt like I had reached my capacity. I felt like I was doing conversational AI stuff at V75, doing some information systems stuff in Apex, which I was already proficient in. I felt like, okay, I'm kind of mastering this conversational AI stuff. What's the next challenge? And I remember just doing some, there were some consultancies available at the Pan American Health Organization, and I applied. And I said, hey, this is my portfolio. And they said, yeah, come on board. And it kept me for a year. And I was working with them. And I remember you coming up and we were talking about it because I was saying, this is something that I might be interested in doing, sort of branching out on my own and sort of being able to pick at whatever problem on the plate to be able to pick up and just go at it. I felt like that was something I may be going towards. And then that's where I think when I told you, like, Eldon, I probably will be looking to start out on my own. And when I was going through, should I do it or should I not? The bigger thing, yes, I wanted to fulfill that itch in my brain that I needed to find something different. But there was the other side of it, which is I would need to start from scratch. V75 already has a really good brand here. We already have a really good footprint. We already have the experts. But nowhere in hell did I think that you guys would be open to me leveling up so quickly. So I just sort of dismissed it. I said, that's not happening. So and that's because there is this constant clash between the traditional aspects of a job and the people in a job versus the V75 DNA. There is a difference there. The traditional aspect clashes a lot with what I see at V75 and vice versa. So in my mind, I'm like, they're not going to even be entertaining that fact that, okay, maybe I can be a part of the management team. I didn't think it. I said, maybe, I was like, that would be a good solution, but it's not going to happen. And that's the traditional side of me thinking, because it's so unusual to do that. So I said, let me try this on my own. We chatted. You asked me how Paho was going and how the work was. And I said, this is going good. This is something that I want to perhaps extend to my own and sort of just form my own brand, my own company, whatever you want to call it. And I think you said right away, you're like, well, hold on, let me get the guys together and let's have a chat. Let's have a talk, a conversation about whether we can bring you into the fold. And I was like, okay. I was like, did not expect him to say that. They really did not. So I remember you just came back and say, okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to be a part of the company. This is going to be a part of this company is going to be a part of your responsibility, and you can essentially help to shape it and to ensure that it's on track in terms of its vision, and you'll be able to manage a lot of the future decisions of the company. Of course, collectively as well, not just me alone. But yeah, that's sort of how we reached from that point to that point.
And from my perspective, Deenauth, this was actually in the cards because I saw that before it actually materialized. And it hinges on what I mentioned earlier with regards to the approach that you have, right? That enterprising nature, the capacity, capability, and just this hunger, right? And I keep saying the V75 is a meritocracy. There is no reason why anyone can't, take the same path that you would have taken. It's just a matter of attracting it to you, just demonstrating that you're ready for it. And I knew without a doubt that you were ready. So it was a very, very easy decision for me. And here you are as a director, right? That's the eventuality out of all that. And that is a very quick progression, in my opinion, from an apprentice to a director. But much of it is, well, actually all of it is because of the type of person that you are. This is what, I guess the saying goes, you attract what you are, right?
True.
And it was just a right fit in terms of that alignment.
Yeah, I think so too.